What is your favorite book and why would you suggest anyone to read it? Turtles All the Way Down. It is the most realistic depiction of being inside someone's head that has depression, anxiety, and OCD. Honestly helped me realize that I had major anxiety and depression by seeing how it works from the inside. Also, a murder mystery with teen romance in there too. Brandon Sanderson's Mistborn. It's anime on a book. I read Crime and Punishment in college. It was amazing. Catch-22. It teaches you how to smell and get the hell out before it is too late. Oh, and it is funny as hell. OMG Reddit, and you will thank me later. To Kill a Mockingbird. I read it at least once a year. I've probably read it more than 30 times by now. Every time I read it I find something new. When I was younger, I identified with the children in the story. As I grew older I identified more with the father. Despite the things that happen in it, it always leaves me feeling better about the world and having hope in humanity. Knowing that, along with the bad people in the world, there are good people trying to do the right thing, and that help can come from unexpected places. In Cold Blood by Truman Capote. It's a fascinating and well-written true crime book. Capote really captures the fear and shock of a small town rocked by a quadruple murder and the almost casual nature of the murderers' lives after the murders happens. Anything by Terry Pratchett. It's freaking hilarious and the entire series will take you years to get through. Sapiens. It contains a wealth of scientific info but is profoundly philosophical as well. The Martian. Many people disregard it because they have seen the movie. Which is great, but it's nowhere near as funny or interesting as the book. The book uses first person to the max in order to set up jokes. Some of them need sort of advanced scientific knowledge, but most are just funny. For example, pseudo-spoilers. Also, I have duct tape. Ordinary duct tape. Like you buy at a hardware store. Turns out even NASA can't improve on duct tape. Is it the best written book? No. Does it have the best characters or plot? No. Is it the best sci-fi book? No. That goes to the Expanse series. But it is by far the most fun I've had reading a book, and it's definitely the most fun I've had rereading a book. Check it out. Especially if you have seen the movie. House of Leaves. I don't know if I'd suggest everyone read it, as it's pretty dense. But it's an absolute masterpiece of ergodic storytelling. Be warned though. You may have to read upside down and backwards in a few parts. The Giver by Lois Lowry will always be my favorite book. It's a really interesting take on a sci-fi, fake utopian world. Stormlight Archive. 1,600-page self-help books disguised as the most bad epic fantasy you could ever read. 100 Years of Solitude. The way Garcia Marquez creates a realistic yet magical world is simply fantastic, and perfectly sums up the history and spirit not only of Colombia, but the whole of Latin America. If you can read it in the original Spanish, do it. Catcher in the Rye. It's one of those books you have to read twice because the motifs are so intricate. I feel like everyone has something to enjoy from the All Creatures books by James Herriot. They're well written, funny, light-hearted enough to be easy reading, but liberally sprinkled with deep medical and veterinary knowledge. At times they can be sort of a mystery story, and show a happy human being's life of hard work and fulfillment. There's just a lot to love in those books, and they manage to be really entertaining. Also, there's a great love story. If you're at all an avid reader, you probably already have. But read Harry Potter. The Outsiders. It's so good. Anne McCaffrey. Todd McCaffrey. The Pern series. It was the first set of adult books I read. This was at a time when I was grounded from reading as a punishment. My cousin smuggled the books to me. I still have the first one. Dragon's Eye. It took me to another world where I could pretend I had power and could change things. Blood Meridian is the best book written in the English language. In my opinion, it isn't for everyone. It is violent, and horrific, and brutal. But it is also beautiful. There is no better English prose. The Book Thief. Beautifully written from start to finish. Heart-wrenchingly good. Me Talk Pretty One Day by David Sedaris. Honest. Insecure and funny. Really. Any book by him is worth a read. Rotten Ruin. Just do it. 1984. What could happen if an authoritarian, totalitarian government has laws, regulations and power over not just your actions, but also your speech and even your thoughts? Catch-22. It convinced me to believe in myself. So this is a copypasta of a comment I made on an extremely similar post here. But it's still valid. Not technically a book. But if it counts, please read Worm. https://parahumans.wordpress.com/. All free. All right here. Worm is a web serial that was written back in 2011 and focuses on the deconstruction of superheroes. If you're someone who's become a little bored of the Marvel franchise's presence in everyday media, or someone who's looking for something more in-depth with world-building in superheroes, this is the one to go for. I won't spoil anything, but there are abilities and character tropes that get explored to absurd levels. And the story is amazing for it. Worm is quite possibly the greatest superhero story made in the last decade. And the fact that it's really niche right now bothers me. But please don't feel obligated to read the whole thing right away. It's best treated as a couple chapters a day. Novel's worth of writing. I ended up binging the whole thing in a month though. Because the scale of escalation in the story gets you invested really hard. The Road by Cormac McCarthy. Written in the simplest form possible. No chapters. Little punctuation. Simple matter-of-fact wording. It's incredibly easy to read, which is good because the content itself is extremely depressing and dire. It's awful. I love it. Shades of Grey. Not 50 Shades of Grey. Shades of Grey by Jasper Fforde. It's bizarre and dystopian and is funny but also eye-opening. Some random tidbits to maybe entice you. Everyone primarily sees one color and the rest is gray. The animals have barcodes on them. Spoons are almost currency. They have lost the ability to see in low light. I don't know how to explain such a quirky book. But I think if you like dystopian novels or Brave New World, you'd like it. Foundation series by Isaac Asimov. The Hobbit. It's such a good fantasy novel that it inspired its own writer to make a 3-part sequel and what is now approaching 100 years of having its own slightly fantasesque subgenre of literature with hundreds of novels and other media coming out every year, clearly inspired by its tone, world building, and style. And yet I've never liked any of them quite as much as the original. Worm by J.C. McCrae. It's really good. And I don't have the vocabulary to explain why. Just Google it and give it a shot. Stephen King has some good reads. The Dark Tower series comes to mind. Also, there are a lot of good books on the Halo series that go really into the depth of the lore. Do I have to choose? The book that had the most profound impact on me was To Kill a Mockingbird. I first read it when I was 9. And it blew me away. I've always been interested in race relations and class relations. But I never heard it in a story before. Scout was about my age. which made the read even more impactful. At that time, I was attending a very unliberal school where racism was accepted and even encouraged. The timing for reading the book was perfect. And I grew with Scout as the book progressed. It helped me understand my surroundings because, like Scout, I had no idea what was going on. It remains my favorite book of all time, as it was the book that made me truly understand racism. The book that got me interested in reading was Harry Potter. I was very low academically, and I befriended a girl who moved in my neighborhood. She was much older than I, and she helped me learn how to read. Then, she told me to read Harry Potter, and I absolutely adored it. It took 7-year-old me 3 weeks to read The Sorcerer's Stone. But I felt a great sense of accomplishment once I finished it. I don't know what it did, but it helped my academic performance immensely. Those 2 books really shaped me into who I am today. I also have to thank Orwell. But I wrote an answer a few days ago proclaiming my love for him. Shadow of the Wind by Carlos Ruiz Zafón, just because I think it's the perfect example of how beautiful and enchanting a novel can be that is accessible to almost any reader. It really is the closest I have ever came to reading a movie, if that makes any sense at all. Lord of the Rings plus The Hobbit. The story is so relatable and well written. The world is developed to an unbelievable scale. I have too. If you like light-hearted comedy, fast-paced action and a little romance, all with a bunch of Greek mythology. I love the Percy Jackson series. It's geared towards middle schoolers and younger for the most part. But I enjoyed it so much and it taught me a lot about Greek mythology. Now I'm in a world myth class at school and I really enjoy it. Also, compared to the books. But the musical is amazing. The second is more geared towards high school and young adults. Legend is dystopian with action, great imagery and romance. It's amazing. And I'm currently reading Prodigy, the second out of 3 books in this series. The Name of the Wind. For fantasy lovers, it's just so good. Watership Down by Richard Adams. It's a beautiful book that I could read many times over. You should read it if you want a book that's happy and exciting. The Count of Monte Cristo. It has everything. Great characters, a love story, betrayal, violence, vengeance, action, an underdog. The Phantom Tollbooth. It has taught me the most important lesson regarding how you live your life and pursue the things that you feel need doing. I don't want to ruin it, but I also don't want to oversell it. The moral of this story is so absurdly beautiful and simple that even a young child like I was could understand and remember it enough to talk about it 30 years later. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I've read it over 30 times and I still laugh at every joke.